What's up, buddy? Hey, you doing all right, Matt? Good. Yeah. Yeah.
Is this mine?
Touch you.
Where am I?
Oh, no.
I'm right here.
Right there.
I guess you're right.
You're trying to take 2 seats?
Yes. I have a big, no, I'm just kidding. Where's all
You
that?
ready?
I don't know. Yeah, good to see you. You doing all right?
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Hey, there she is. Who said you weren't coming?
I'm coming. Just don't have a phone.
Huh?
How do we live without our phone?
It might be a blessing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well,
All right, I'd like to call the October 13th, 2022 Pasco MPO Board to order. Let's see. Want to remind everybody right now to silence their cell phones.
don't have to worry about that.
Catherine doesn't have one.
on.
Is this on? Hello? Okay. I want to welcome everybody again, silence the cell phones, and can we have everybody rise for the invocation and pledge at this time?
O merciful Creator, your hand is open wide to satisfy the needs of every living creature. Make us thankful for your loving providence, and grant that we, remembering the account that we must one day give, may be faithful stewards of your good gifts. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I do again want to welcome everybody today. And could you please have the roll call at this time?
Scott Black,
Here.
Mayor Scott Tremblay, Councilman Matt Murphy,
Here.
Commissioner Ron Oakley,
Here.
Commissioner Mike Moore, Commissioner Catherine Starkey,
Here.
Commissioner Christina Fitzpatrick,
Here.
Commissioner Jack Mariano, Chairman Lance Smith.
Here, thank you. And before we go to public comment, I do want to recognize a few people that are here today. We have with us Bob Esposito with the Hernando Citrus MPO. We appreciate you coming today. And then we have Secretary Gwynn from the DOT here as well, and we certainly appreciate your attendance today. Thank you. At this point in the agenda, we have a call for public comments. Has anybody signed to speak, or anybody want to speak? All right, nope, okay. I'm going to go on to the first item, which I think is the approval of the minutes of the prior meeting.
Mr. Chair, move approval.
Second.
And you move for approval of all three?
three.
Okay,
That's
thank
correct.
you. We have a motion and a second for approval. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, our MPO Advisory Committee reports.
Good morning, members. Our Citizens Advisory Committee met on October 5th. They had an agenda that was nearly identical to your own. One of the things that they did have that's not shown on your agenda is a review of their committee membership. They've had a few vacancies, and actually we just had another one recently. We'll be reaching out to each of you who have vacancies individually so that we can get those set up. All of the items that are before you today that they have reviewed, they did recommend your approval. The Technical Advisory Committee met on October 4th. They also looked at the items that will be before you today, and they recommended approval of each of those items. So those are things I have to bring forward from the committees. Are there any questions, please?
Does anyone have any questions for Carl? Also, let the record reflect that Mayor Scott Tremblay came. We appreciate you coming, Scott. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question on
Yes.
this one, because when I had my conference call with David Green from T-BARTA, he said Chris Jaddick is leaving T-BARTA.
I'm sorry to hear that.
So does that matter?
It does matter.
Then there may be a problem.
And that has obviously occurred from the time of agenda publication
Yeah.
to today.
Yeah.
So maybe we can just, when we get to that agenda item, maybe we can just go past it.
All right, do not let this out of this room.
We are being recorded.
I know.
Too
Erase
late.
that part because maybe it's not public knowledge.
So we're on the, any advisory committee questions for Carl? If not, we'll go to that first action item, which is number 4, which you had referred to. The appointment of Chris Chaddock of T-Barta. And we wish to just pull this from the agenda? Okay. Have a motion to table?
Second.
So moved.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. Table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, item number 5, the Federal Highway Greenhouse Gas Emissions Performance Measure.
We moved to that. We did have one other committee report, the Bicycle Pedestrian.
Oh, I'm
Advisory
sorry.
Committee.
I
No,
thought
it's
you,
okay.
I thought you
So
gave all of them.
They met last evening, and Ms. Tina Russo will be making that presentation. And while she's doing that, my OCD is going to do a little something.
I'm not whoever that is.
Tina, sorry I slighted you. I thought he was getting it wrong.
I don't want to tarnish your good reputation, so thank you.
It's kind of fitting because our original date was October 28th, so we had to postpone due to a little storm.
You mean September 28th.
Grateful that we were able to reschedule and meet last night. Dr. Stovall was so nice to quickly provide a report that I can read to you now. BPAC met West Pasco Government Center at 5:45, like I said last night. They were pleased to learn about the new SDK program and appreciate the value of improving data retrieval and timely access to transportation information stored in a single database system. There was considerable discussion about U.S. Bike Route 15 proposed by Adventure Cycling. It's actually a discussion that we've had for almost a year for the group to know. And however, at our most recent meeting, we allowed State Route 39 south of Zephyr Hills and continuing through Hillsborough County was not significantly different from any safety perspective that many other roads regularly seen by bicyclists. So we voted to recommend that MPO approve the U.S. Bike Route 15 because publication of the bike route will increase our national visibility and as a bicycle destination. However, we would like to recommend that Venture Cycle members and Reed also explore the other rideable trails and roads in Pasco County, as we believe that there are many wonderful places to ride now and more in our county. So I thought that was a good compromise by the committee on an action item that we've been looking at for almost a year now by Adventure Cycling. And just for you guys to know, it's a route from Madison, Florida, all the way to the very southern end of Florida. So there's 19 different jurisdictions that they've had to get approval. We'll be the 16th of the 19. We approved the 2023 meeting calendar and appreciate that our schedule will include a rotation of locations across the county. You have in our agenda for consideration today the latest update in the participation plan.
Sorry.
We heard a report on coming construction of Elfer Spur Extension Bike Trail, which is the connection between Anclet Trail and the Pinellas Trail. They were very pleased to hear the progress finally of that extension to Pasco County to Pinellas County. They reviewed the 6 sidewalk projects that's included in our LOP and the progress report on those. And then we had a busy meeting last night.
Yes, we did.
Tina approved and provided an update on the current county projects currently underway in some form. As we have noted before, there's a number of very significant bike ped projects underway across the county, and that they were very grateful to hear the progress on these projects. They spent quite a bit of considerable time reviewing the last U.S. safety presentation that was presented by FDOT and BOCC. You're going to hear that presentation today. Pasco County Parks are updating their Pasco Greenway Trails and Blueways Master Plan and asked that a BPAC member consider joining their discussion and provide that bike ped perspective. That's all I have. And we have a Tri-County meeting on November 2nd here.
Mr.
Commissioner
Chairman,
Murphy.
I was, back when you were talking about 39 and riding bikes and those things, and then you added the part about the trails, I think it's very important that we express our thoughts about trails and using them throughout the county, because they're much safer than bikes being on our roads, and we have them there, and it's pretty dangerous. So I know a lot of bikers that have biked for years and years. They do 30 and 40 miles. They've gone to our trail system rather than stay on roads because they've been hit 2 or 3 times by cars. So as much as we can express the safety of riding on trails than roads, it would be very welcome in our county totally, so.
So
I
the
appreciate the report, so.
BPAC in March actually voted down that request from Adventure Cycling, them supporting that group. And after several discussions and actually discussions with Hillsborough and Hernando and the other counties that are part of Route 15, Adventure Cycling's been around a long time before we had trails.
Is that a nonprofit, or what is it?
Yeah, it's a nonprofit. They basically do bike routes, but now with technology and trails, that offers a different avenue. And that's kind of what the motion made last night was that we'll support this, but we want you guys to let everybody know the other options out there for safer routes.
And part of that route, and I don't know, do we have that route in here? But part of that route is the 301 trail. So they don't have to be on 301, they can get off. I think right now on 39, there is not a trail.
Nope.
And I don't know that road, is that a busy road?
So we re-looked
Yeah,
at 39.
it's crazy.
Pepper Hills and Plant City.
Yeah, it's not that
No,
wide either, so.
we all went out at 39 and looked at it, and it's got some newer pavement, and it's got some shoulder. But again, these folks who do adventure cycling routes, they're self-supported, they do cross-country rides. They're smart enough to know if they want to get off a road or a location, if there's alternative routes for them.
Do we have any plans for a trail in that area that would?
So part of the route, the Withlacoochee extension will be eventually part of it. Right now, it goes down, I think, Power Line and some other roads, but Withlacoochee extension, and part of Route 15 is Withlacoochee until it ends, basically, and then it cuts over. So the Withlacoochee extension will be part of that route when it's constructed and available.
And whenever we can get off the road and have those trails go through something else, that's, to me, better. You know, I had a conversation with Withlacoochee Electric, and they seemed amenable to putting trails in their corridors. And I've never talked to TICO, but certainly you've got a TICO representative living in Dade City. So, you know, they may not be as difficult a partner as some of our other companies.
Right.
And so I think we should explore that.
Anything else for Tina? Thank you, Tina, for
Thank
the.
you.
All right. Carl, I don't want to mess up our schedule. Now we got, now we're to the action items? Or do we
Yes,
have?
please.
Okay. And we tabled the first one, so now we're on the greenhouse measurement.
Yes, thank you. In your packet is a draft letter for comment on a proposed rulemaking by US DOT to regulate greenhouse gases. They are only looking at the national highway system, not the entire network. And it does require both DOTs and MPOs to establish declining emissions from transportation. The MPOs would have to establish a 4-year emissions reduction target for their metropolitan area, so Pasco County in our case. And we would have to establish a reduction of 50% by 2030 and a 100% reduction by 2050. It does not currently contain any stated penalties for failure to meet that, but that is something that theoretically could be changed in the future. And there is a contingency that is providing comment to the federal docket asking for penalties. And as we have been going through the docket comments, we are seeing a very common theme to those comments, as if they are maybe coming from one source and being distributed out in a mass email, and those are then being copied into comment letters. Excuse me. The rulemaking also does not provide for those states, such as Florida, that have rapid population growth. It is fixed off of 2021, and we must decline from there. So as we add population, most people come with an automobile or maybe even a few. So we're likely to see increases. There is a concern about the need for this proposed rule, and Congress did not give FHWA the authority to regulate air or direct them to undertake this rulemaking. This is something that's initiated by the agency. There are the Clean Air Act amendments of 1990 that regulate air quality and have charged US EPA with that task. So we would like to make comments to the docket in opposition to this proposed rulemaking. And so we are seeking your support to submit that comment, or the comment letter that's contained in your packet.
Well, Carl,
Yes, sir.
that's in the process of trying to get everybody to go green, like electric cars and things of that nature. Until they make, and David Ghosting will tell me that I'm wrong, because he's got a perfect electric car. But there's some of these cars out there, somebody told me that they picked up their electric car, it was fully charged. They made it 65 miles and then it stopped. And they were nowhere near a place to hook up and repower their car. But these cars have got to get way better than what they are right now, because people can't travel cross-country and other things with that. So I imagine we're going to see increases. Our roads, we're improving our roads and more lanes, so we know people are coming every day to live here in Florida. So it's going to be hard to cut that down, so.
Yes.
And I wanted to add on that,
Sure.
if I may. One of the problems with going green is the infrastructure. You have an electric car, there's limited spots to charge a car, so to expect more people to have electric cars when the infrastructure's not, we're just not there yet. So this is kind of hard to say that we're going to agree to this, and there may be a penalty down the road if we don't have the infrastructure set up for it. So that would be my concern with this type of initiative.
Well, and Carl, I think you bring up a great point, because if it's based on a certain year, and it doesn't take into consideration the number of miles traveled by the vehicles, I don't see how it works for us. I mean, we're going to blow over our cap easy. So that's the problem. I mean, I know they're establishing the rules, but is it already set in your mind, or is objecting kind of futile, you think?
With these things, it's always difficult to tell what kind of outside pressures they may be getting from other sources. I do feel that to not comment would be a grave error on our part. I think we need to protect our ability to have a robust transportation system to aid our economy, our quality of life. And I think we owe it also to our friends at Florida DOT to provide comment showing that we are in support of moving forward. We're not opposed to the idea of having better air quality.
Sure.
But I don't know what it is that we as an MPO or Florida DOT can do to alleviate that. I see that as perhaps a
economy.
technological fix with automobiles. The introduction of the catalytic converter way back in the early 70s cleaned up cars dramatically, but that was something that was done to the automobiles. It wasn't done by Pasco MPO. It wasn't done by Florida DOT.
Right. And I liked your comments that you had in there about the vehicle miles, because it is a little unfair, because the number of cars is not going to remain static. So I think the vehicle miles would be the way to measure it. And I think most of us want to leave a cleaner planet to our kids. I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing, but we need the measurements to be fair.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I would just say too, that it's a bit of a lure to sign on when they say there's no penalty, but then there is that potential at some point there could be, punitive measures taken, and I'm not sure that that's something we want to be signing up for, and, so much beyond our control.
Yeah, and I would just kind of piggyback on it. It's definitely something that's beyond our control. We have to, I mean, this is from a federal level all the way down to a private level, utility companies. I mean, everybody has to work together to try to make this happen. So it's hard to, narrow it down. It's everybody has to jump in. I mean, if even half the cars out there with electric right now, our electric grid wouldn't handle it. So, I mean, it's just got a lot of work to do.
Any other comment on this? If not, this is an action item.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I move the staff approval in the letter that has been recommended by our director.
Have a motion? Have a second? Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Carl.
And Chair, you had complimented the letter, and I do want to recognize both Johnny and Scott as the individuals who did the crafting of the letter.
Good. Good job. All right. Thank you. Let's go to our next item. So the next item we have is, what, 5? I messed up here. Nope, 6. Thank you.
It's our public
Okay,
participation.
public participation, thank you. Keep me straight, I got so much stuff. Okay, who's going to do that? Carl?
I will, thank you. So the public participation plan is a federally required document, and as required under the federal regulations, CFR, we have to engage in a 45-day comment period, which is then ending today. This document has gone through that. The purpose of the update to this document is twofold. First, it is to remove the requirement for hybrid meetings. We're past that point. We had to put it in during the pandemic. The other thing is the state legislature passed the, as part of the advertising requirements, that we are no longer required to advertise in a newspaper, that we can advertise our meetings on our website. It does not prohibit us from, in the future, advertising in a newspaper. It simply does not require it. Just kind of updating with the times. We had to reflect both of those in our document. There were some updates to some of the charts just for clarity's sake, but those are the two substantial changes. We will be bringing you a wholesale revision of the public participation plan as we launch our long-range plan. So this is considered a modification, or an amendment, rather. We do need your approval in order for this to become official.
Anybody have
Approval.
Second?
have a motion for approval and a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the MPO calendar.
Thank you. So this is our proposed calendar for calendar year 2023. We have followed the methodology of using the traditional Thursday. However, you will note there is one exception, and that is for August 10th. We would normally be scheduled to have a meeting. That will conflict with the National Association of Counties. No,
August? No, that's in July.
I'm sorry, that's
Florida League
July
of
Florida
21
League
to
of Cities,
23.
yeah.
It's the Florida League of Cities Annual Conference.
yeah,
That would
we
be
had that.
August 10th.
Yeah.
I've got my notes reversed.
Yeah.
And we've moved it to the 17th to avoid that conflict. We have confirmed that we are not conflicting with the National Association of Counties, which is July 21 to 24 in Austin, Texas. This calendar has been approved by all of the committees for their dates. We're seeking your approval of the calendar for your dates.
Move approval. Second.
Have a motion and a second for approval. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And I think that was the last action item, wasn't it? Have a Go
believe
Pasco
so.
report?
Just checking my time. Good morning. It's James Flaherty. I am the Assistant Director for Go Pasco. I just wanted to start the meeting, or our portion of the meeting, by introducing you to our newly appointed director. This is Janina Elkin.
Good morning. Nina
Morning.
Hi there.
Elkin. How are you guys doing? I'm very excited to be here. Look forward working with my team and our partners for a greater Go Pasco. I also would like to inform you that we will be working on new projects, and we will be updating you as we move forward. And James have some stats to provide? Right.
So we finished our fiscal year in the end of September. We finished with 560,000 fixed route rides, which is an increase from last year. Not a huge jump, but about a 2% increase. On our paratransit, we had a higher increase, which is about 5%. We ended the year with 42,500, which is right where we were anticipating as we got to the fourth quarter of the year. And I could take any questions from there.
Questions?
I'm just wondering where we are in transitioning bus benches without covers to covered bus benches, especially in the most used sites, because I hate seeing people in the rain
Correct.
sitting there.
Yeah, we do have multiple locations that we're looking at introducing shelters. There is some ADA requirements and engineering that has to go along with some of those locations, so we're working to utilize ADA funding in some of our current grants, and we have to go through engineering contracts as well to get some of those done, because there needs to be a pad, there needs to be larger size, you have to be further away from the road to introduce shelters, but we are working on introducing shelters and purchasing more.
Is there, is it allowed to just, oh, our screens just went out. Is it allowed to, they're back. I didn't do it. I have an automatic charger this morning. Is it possible to just put some kind of permanent metal shade structure over a bench where we don't have the more expensive, building things that when we take the bench out and you put the three-sided shelters? I mean, are there alternatives to putting in the three-sided bus shelters?
There are different types of shelters that you can implement. There are some that do not have the full sides like you currently see out on our roads right now. We would have to look at making sure that they are hurricane compliant and that they meet actual county ordinances and code. But it's something that we could look into if that's the will of the MPO and the Board of Commissioners.
Oh, yeah, I mean, if we can't afford to put all the, the big fancy ones, maybe there's a type A and a type B that will allow us to shade and protect
We would still
more of
need to
them.
provide the ADA standards along with the concrete pads to bolt down.
Okay, so
those types of-
why do you have to have ADA when you put a shelter on it, and it doesn't have to be ADA when you're just exposed to all the elements?
When you upgrade a bus stop from its current condition with a new amenity such as a shelter, you need to bring it up to ADA compliance and code.
Okay, I just want to remind you, some of y'all are new, but over the years, I brought up the bus bench, and I'd like you to look at it next time you're driving down 54, that's in front of Rasmussen now, and the Santander Bank. It is in the grass on the turn lane to the Suncoast with no way to get to it. We actually have an employee here at the county whose wife takes that, uses that bus. And, I mean, I don't even know how he drops her off, but you have to walk through the grass to get to that.
No sidewalks or anything?
No, nothing. So that's one I really want you to pay attention to. At the very least, we should put a sidewalk to it.
Currently, we have Coastal, we're reviewing their contract, so they can provide designs for all those bus stops. Once they provide us the pad design, then we can move forward with construction. And then benches or shelters, depending on the location.
Yeah, so that's the saddest bus stop we have that I know of.
The bus stop improvement program is one of our top project for this coming years.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've seen some here lately on the east side that have no covers or anything.
Yes.
There might be a bench there or something, but
Yeah, we're
you're out in the
reviewing.
elements and rainy
they're-
season, I
right.
mean, it's.
Most of them are like
rough.
that. But this one, I don't even know how you get to it. That's the problem.
Yeah,
And
we
with
could-
Rasmussen there, students going to school there, maybe we need to relook at that bus stop, and maybe it's in the park, in the complex, and not
Probably in the wrong spot.
out on 54 on the turn lane.
That is something that we have looked at. While there was construction going on, we were trying to determine whether we could actually get in behind the school or in front of the school. Obviously, it was fenced off for construction, so we couldn't make that determination yet. But now that if it's open, we can
Oh, yeah, it's
relook
open
into
and
that.
packed, yeah. And
Okay.
Santander is also open.
Because originally,
Santander,
years
I
ago,
was gonna say.
the 54 bus actually went in there when the Target
Right,
was
exactly.
open and available. So I'm sure we could probably do it again and move it out of that location because it's not our favorite spot.
Yeah,
either.
that'd be great.
Right, okay.
Definitely something we'll be reviewing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Tremblay?
I see that this is titled US 19 Safety Presentation.
That's the next item.
That's the next item, because I wanted to weigh in on that.
That is not our presentation.
You sure you don't want to say a little something?
Because I said go Pasco and then status report.
Correct, yeah, that's the next section is status reports.
Smart, smart. Anything else? If not, thank you for the presentation and welcome too. All right. Now we have our three presentations, first of three presentations, the US 19 safety presentation. Ina,
Sorry, I was ahead of you there.
that's all right. Thank you.
Thank you,
We need need those T-shirts again. Pray for me, I
Thank you, ma'am.
drive
I
on
appreciate it.
19.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember those?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not funny, though, but.
Actually, I try not to drive on 19.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Tina Russo, Active Transportation Planner, and Johnny Kors. We've been tag teaming this presentation with all of our committees, and Johnny's actually the one that's crunched the numbers from crash reports. And we've done a lot of work on this. This is a follow-up presentation to the Peter Shue presentation that was done to the board on September 20th. So kind of a little bit deeper dive into that presentation that was made at the board meeting. But it's also a precursor for, as we're leading up to our countermeasure that comes out in January, where we look at all of our fatalities in the county and figure out what we're going to do to change those numbers and how we're going to do it. So we all know, and this is what's brought this up again, is that 19 is one of our deadliest corridors for all crashes. And then we'll get into a little bit about vulnerable users, but it's the highest. It's number 19 is our #1 fatality corridor in Pasco County. 25% of our fatalities happen on 19. We had the Vox, we've had several articles, nationally articles that talked about 19. It's happened more than once, as we all know. But we just wanted to do a little bit deeper dive into that presentation that Peter Shue did with District 7 FDOT, and we've been working with DOT on 19, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about right now. So we know that the total fatalities on 19, I'm going to go ahead and get my notes here. This is by the year here. So 21% of our fatalities happen on 19, but 30% of our vulnerable users are happening on 19. And our vulnerable users include pedestrian, bicyclists, and actually motorcycle users. So it's not only all of our car crashes, it's those vulnerable users that really top off the chart, as we all know. And then the next slide. So what we started is, and with DOT's help greatly, is we started doing some engagement out on 19. DOT actually did this before COVID, and then when COVID hit, it stopped. So we started going out, DOT goes out, Mike Zinn and his group, Julie Bond from Qatar, from USF, have been going out on Sunday evenings, basically from 6:30 to 1 a.m., and you're going to find out why we choose those numbers to go out and engage with folks. We also picked certain locations based on crashes and some other information on those locations to meet and talk to folks. So we went out, we gave out lights, we gave out bags that were kind of reflective vests, we gave out reflective bands, but we also talked to these folks. We had a set of survey questions that we would ask them. So they were really willing to engage with us. So what we found out from these folks is they cross this road several times a day. We're not just talking a couple of times a day to get to the bus stop. They're talking 10 and 12 times a day crossing 19. We also found out that one of their biggest complaints was the speed of the vehicles. So we actually got to witness that firsthand. We got trained as laser technicians, so we went out and used speed detectors and found out how fast people are going on 19. Those right turn lanes, using them as passing lanes, all those things. But we heard that from the folks that have to use 19 to get back and forth from their destinations. So lack of mid-block crossings was a big one. We asked them, and I was out near 52, just on the south side of 52, and you can see them cut through the shopping center and crossing, way before the intersection and way away from the crosswalks. And they say it's dangerous for us to try to cross there. People won't stop when they make right turns. They're flying through the right turns. It's much safer for me to cross here. So that was some of the things. We also talked about Go Pasco and bus stops, and we've looked at the crashes, and we're going to get a little bit more about that crash data. But a lot of it based on bus schedule, the bus stop that they have to get to. And then intoxication, we're going to talk about that a little bit. It was brought up, in the meeting, BOCC meeting. We're going to give you some of those numbers based on what we can. And then the high rate of close calls. So we use crash data, so we know that those are true fatalities. We know that there's serious injuries, but there's a lot of close calls out there as well. And they mentioned that. You know, I've almost been hit or I've been tagged, and it's never been reported. So there's a lot of incidents that happen that we don't know about. And that's one of the things we're hoping with some of our new technology that we can kind of learn more about. So being out gave us a good hands-on feeling on what's going on out there. So what we dove into and what Johnny really dived into, we got what we call a 6-year trend. DOT uses a 5-year trend quite a bit, but we wanted to get pre-COVID and post-COVID, because we all know that life changed for everybody during that time span. So a lot of these numbers are based on a 6-year span, and they're always subject to change because this data and information from crash reports changes based on the investigation of the crash report. So some of the things that we get out of them, and we try to keep privacy important with everything because their name and addresses are on here, but we look at where the location of the crash happened. We looked at lighting conditions, daytime, nighttime. DOT spent a lot of money on enhancing lighting on 19 as well, and it's helped. We also look at the time of the crash, and we also looked at the impairment. And all those things are on that long form crash report. And just remember, we're basing all of our information on a crash report that's done by law enforcement. Next. So what we found out is that on this page, you can kind of see that 6-year trend. And of course, you got a little bit of a dip, and then it comes back up, dips, and then comes back up again. So we know it kind of fluctuates, but that's why we do a 6-year or 5-year, is to kind of get the trend, and that trend is not very good at all for anybody. So another thing is we looked at the difference between pedestrians and bicyclists as far as that goes, and we can see that the pedestrians are the much higher percentage. And Johnny, anytime you feel like I missed something, please jump in. So 81% of our fatalities, and these are just fatalities. We had a question from BPAC, how about serious injuries? And we know there's a lot of them. It took us a while to even just get the fatality part down. So we know that 81% are pedestrians. So we had 54 of that number. How many total number, Johnny, was it? 80-something? So 67. So the large majority are pedestrians that are getting killed. The interesting part about the bicycle part, these are people that use the bicycle for the same purpose of our pedestrians here, and they're doing the same behavior darting across 19. So they're not your average day cyclists going out to go for a bike ride for leisure, so to speak. So they're using their bike for a mode of transportation as well.
Did you follow where those bicyclists are going? Because I know where they're going on one side. And I kind of know where they're going on the other side. It's the same group. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and we found out last night, too, with Mike Zen in our BPAC meeting, that a lot of the locations that we picked, other than crash stats, was we based it on some certain camps is where
Yes.
we were going to be at engaging.
From
at
one drug house on one side
Yep.
to the camp on the other, and they just go back and forth and back and forth.
So, and a lot of these came up with questions that come through our committees and from our community traffic safety team. But the main day, the highest day is Sunday. That's their highest numbers on Sunday. And Johnny, you had a little bit more information.
Their
on that
highest number
Sunday.
of crossing, their highest number of hits.
Fatalities is on Sunday.
The only thing I would add to that is that the Sunday fatalities are spread throughout the day, whereas the rest of the week, it seems like they're more nighttime. But for whatever reason, the Sundays are spread more throughout the day and night.
Is there any rationale? I mean, what's the rationale, you think?
Because none of those people are working, so.
We've had lots of conversation in all of our committees and that, and now, once we've gotten this basic information, I think we're going to do a little bit deeper dive. We even talked about addressing where are they coming from, like you were
I'll
talking
give you
about
the
where you
address.
go, and sometimes those addresses on crash reports are not correct, by
I
the
can
way.
give you the
So, this is the biggest one, is the time of day. So, the first chart is 4-hour segments. And you can see most of them are from that 8 PM to 12 PM. That's the highest percentage. That's 52% in that 4-hour percentage. But then when we break it down further in that category, our highest time is from 8 to 10. And that's our 30%, and from 10 to 12, 22%. So you break it down, those are our peak times, and we can break it down any further. And that's why we picked the times, and that's why DOT picked the times to go out and do that engagement as well, is because those are the peak times that those crashes are happening. So another thing is, and it's important to know because it's how we proceed to help prevention and change behavior, and also save people from that behavior, because sometimes you're not going to change some of this behavior, is that we found out that most of these are happening outside of the intersection. If you look at this, the majority, 70+% are outside the intersection, and then on top of that, 90% of them, is it 91, Johnny, that are outside the crosswalk. And we've heard several folks also from DOT, and we've witnessed it ourselves, they'll go past a crosswalk to avoid the crosswalk to get across the road because they don't think it's safe. So again, and most of them are at intersections. I'll be honest with you, there's right turning, there's 64 possibilities of movement in a four-way intersection, and they can't handle it. So they pick a spot away from an intersection, which is not a crosswalk, and that's why they're darting across mid-block, and that's why, unfortunately, cars don't see them, and we're going to get a little bit more into that.
One thing I will add to that is there's really no substitute for actually being out there and watching how people are interacting with the infrastructure. So you will literally see somebody walk past a crosswalk, walk maybe 200 feet down 19 and cross there because that is where they perceive it's the safest for them.
That's really interesting.
Are they going past
but
the
is-
right-hand turn lane? Is it?
Yeah, they're avoiding all those other conflicts where they know they've had conflict before. In discussion with folks south of 52, I talked to one guy who works in a nursing home as a kitchen helper and stuff. Really nice guy. I think it's the picture of me putting the light on his bike, and he says, I can't do it because I'll be hit. So I cross here because it's safer for me to cross here, and he does it several times a day to get to his destinations.
Mr. Chairman.
Because this is probably the biggest issue, or one of the biggest issues
You guys.
that I've dealt with in Port Richey, because you have Ridge and 19, and then you got Grand and 19 going into where Maine is, and that's Newport Richey has all those issues. And since I've been the mayor in 2019 on, I don't think we've had any homicides other than probably every couple months we have them, and they're normally pedestrian or bike on vehicle. One of the interesting thing about the peak times is normally during rush hour traffic, the cars can't move fast enough to run people over, so it's just naturally slowed down because of traffic. Where when you get into that 8 to 10 o'clock where you have the higher peak, not only is it dark so you can't see folks, but the traffic's moving quicker. So one of the things that I've been working with is trying to set up just local traffic details at that time to slow the traffic down. But the other issue is, when you're talking about safety, we do have crosswalks and sidewalks. The problem is, a lot of the folks that are crossing would be, I guess, considered transient, that we have these fatalities with. But they're also under the influence, which I think a lot of them are, which is part of the problem, is they're walking past a crosswalk, down halfway through the block and then into the median, and they're pushing a grocery cart, and there you have other issues, and they're wearing all dark. So you have drivers coming through that are traveling excessive speed. I'm not excusing that, but a big part of the problem is the pedestrians themselves. So I don't know, and I saw that there was a county discussion on this, and I know that Commissioner Mariano was right on point, and I think we did the right thing in terms of we pushed the golf cart path up, because I think that gives people that aren't in that camp other avenues to cross over there, whether by golf cart, bike, pedestrians, a multi-cart. So, I think that we've done the right thing in terms of pushing that project up, that will alleviate some of those issues with Newport Richey and Port Richey, as well as a county. It'll be a tri-county or tri-government issue. But I think that there's a certain number of people that other than slowing traffic down, I don't know if you're gonna be able to control, based on those other issues where they cross. So,
So that's kind of the next slide.
I'm
here.
sorry, I
So
got ahead of you there.
Thank you for the leeway into this. So
Hey, Tina,
what-
Commissioner Fitz had something.
Commissioner?
Thank you. So this morning, I almost saw a little boy get hit on a bicycle on his way to school because I was coming out at Lemon Road, turning onto Ridge, and I was trying to see if the crosswalk had changed yet because there was a young boy sitting, heading east, and he waited, and he sat there and waited, and there was a car heading east as well. Not knowing that the car was going to turn left, he went to start heading east at the same time. And luckily, the person in the lane next to me, they honked their horn, and I was kind of able to be like, stop. And the vehicle turning onto Lemon Road did stop, but it was like scary for them. But the little boy had no idea because his back was now turned to the car. So when they're both going in the same direction, they're not even noticing that they're almost getting hit by a vehicle.
So was he in a crosswalk, I guess?
Yes.
Did he push the crosswalk
Yes.
button and he had the signal to go?
I couldn't see
Okay.
at the angle.
And I'll check on that, because that's the biggest thing is, a lot of times they'll push it, and if he's waiting too long, he won't wait for the PED signal to go, but I'll check and make sure. And I've done some ride-alongs with FHP. We had something very similar happen on 301, and the guy went across the PED signal, left turn, got him, and then, again, he had to be cited. Unfortunately, he was hit, he wasn't hurt, but he was cited because he did not use the PED signal to go with, because it's synced for you to avoid that. So we'll double check and make sure it's synced correctly,
I
too.
want to say he may have waited, because I was trying to see if it was when it was going to go, but everyone was heading east on Ridge Road. So it could have been at that time, because no one was expecting the gentleman to make a right-hand turn onto Lemon Road.
And that's Lemon and Ridge, correctly? Okay. So this is what you were just talking about, and it came up at the board meeting, and we did a little bit deeper dive into it. The average age has come up in a couple of our meetings, and we found out the average age is 46, a little bit older than we thought it would be. And then, unfortunately, you have the gamut. You have a 91-year-old gentleman, and then you have, was it an 18? 18 was the youngest in there.
You talking about fatalities?
Yep. So this is the big one. This is the big one that keeps coming up. So 51% of the fatalities tested positive for drug or alcohol.
Yep.
Okay, 51%. And I'll just be honest with you, those are not always done. They can be pricey. So that number is probably higher than that. When it comes to drivers, we just know that 39% of the drivers are pending or not known. So we don't have a really good feel for the drivers as well, if they're intoxicated or, especially since it's a late night. So we don't have a really good idea of what that's like either. But we know that these folks that are getting hit and killed, 51% plus are impaired. So that makes it really hard to figure out how to save them from their behavior. So this is the biggest one for me that I really appreciate how Johnny spent the time to doing it, because I think we could hopefully do something with this. So these are the lanes of travel. So that far 3 left lanes there is southbound lanes, okay? The far right lanes there are northbound lanes on 19. There's a little north symbol down there that kind of gets camouflaged in. Those arrows are the direction of the pedestrians. So if you're looking left to right, they're walking westbound to eastbound on 19. If you look at the bottom, they're going eastbound to westbound on 19. 50% more of our fatalities happen in northbound lanes. There's got to be something to that. If you look at those numbers, a lot more of them are being killed in those northbound lanes. VNCAP said it's probably something to do with timing and phasing of signals, so we're going to have to look at that. We also know by looking at this.
Can I weigh in on that?
Sure, please do.
I can tell you that in our city, the traffic backs up heading southbound because you have more people going down to Clearwater, Safety Harbor, Dunedin. So your traffic's moving actually slower southbound than northbound. Northbound, you're heading up to Brooksville, and there's not as many cars heading northbound. So I can tell you it's the speed of the vehicles in our city on 19 that I'm guessing is a big part of that. And the other reason that I was going to weigh in on that is because you have during the daytime hours, you have as many accidents with bicycles. We get them all the time. But they're not fatalities because the cars aren't moving as quickly. So that's why the fatalities are later, is because the traffic's moving faster. And I think that's why this study, and my guess would be more fatalities, is because you don't have the traffic just naturally slowing down heading northbound like you do southbound.
Right.
You
And
know,
we're
it-
going to do a much deeper dive in that, and with our SDAK stuff, we can look at trip destination or origins to help with that too. Ms. Smith?
Commissioner Fitz.
Yes, and I was going to say, so are you saying there were 0 fatalities on the bottom right?
Yes.
Because my question was going to be, if they're traveling north across the road compared to west across the road, do you have the fatalities if they were crossing north?
So what we think happens here is, if you notice, it's the farther out lanes from where they're walking from. So if they're going westbound, the speeds are higher, usually in those outside lanes. People don't get to see them. The person darting across the road doesn't see them, and all those things add to those higher numbers, what we call on the outside lanes.
Passing lane, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll add also that sometimes the crash report does not indicate what direction they were traveling. Sometimes they're just in the road, they're standing in the road, or even laying down the road. So those are not reflected in that diagram. It's just where the crash report was able to indicate what direction they were traveling, east or west.
Just because that little boy and the gentleman, they were both heading the same direction, and the one stopped, the other one was slowing down, and they both ended up going at the same time, because he saw the little boy waiting, and then all of a sudden, they just both took off.
Okay.
Commissioner
And
Starkey.
to your
has-
point, if I may weigh in, we see all the time too, where you have people, when I say people, there's a lot of transient folks, and we deal with that. But a lot of times they sit in the median, so it's
Right.
hard to say which way they're going, because they start
Yeah.
from the median when they step out into the road, and they've been in the median for a while, whether they're panhandling or whatever they're doing over there. So it's really hard to tell from a data perspective
Yes.
which way they're coming from.
Yep.
I know it was really hard to get this data, but is it FHP that's doing the crash reports?
Yes.
I really think we need to know all collisions.
We get all the
I
long
mean,
forms.
I just
we
think,
can go, that was brought up last night
Yeah.
about getting into the serious injury and injury.
yeah,
It's
any
just- there's a
injury,
lot of-
anyone getting hit.
But our city does the long forms too, our officers do.
Yeah,
Pasco County Sheriff's Department does not do any form. They do not do any
they do no
forms.
crash reports.
No
Like,
crash
Our city
reports.
keeps records on that, and I bet you Newport.
And I just learned at a meeting yesterday, they're not going to do speeding either.
Why not?
But
They feel that's FHP's responsibility.
But if you guys need city records on long forms, particularly the homicides, I'm sure we can get those to you.
So we get those, the crash reports we get on Signal 4 are all jurisdiction long
Oh,
forms.
so you already
Yeah.
get 'em. Okay.
Commissioner.
And Commissioner Starkey, on that point, which may be a touchy subject, but if we're going to put aside 1.68 million for 10 additional law enforcement officers,
40.
Ca-
Yeah, we gave money for 40.
can we, I know, but I'm saying we specifically, can we request or suggest, or, because not only can it help reduce the fatalities and the injuries of pedestrians and motor vehicle accidents and everything like that, it's also going to reduce our 911 calls.
Yep.
It's also going to reduce our fire rescue calls. It's either going to trickle everything down. So it really boils down to, we need a speed road deputies out there providing tickets so people will start slowing down.
Well,
And until they start slowing down, I don't think we're going to see our fatalities and our auto accidents slow down.
And I think this might be a really good conversation for the Tuesday morning safety workshop that we're having with FDOT that is about Vision Zero. So that might be a good time for that conversation as well.
I
'Cause
did,
Hopefully all elected officials are in there too.
I did hear that, last year, I had a meeting with some state officials, and we're told we had 2 FHP officers assigned to Pasco, and my understanding is now we have 8.
There's quite a bit more, and there's quite a few that have just come online for this district because they just came through the academy and they went through field training. And there's another group, I think, coming down as well. And Lieutenant Rux, I can get that number for you for our next meeting, and maybe even for Tuesday morning's meeting.
And is it that 8, is it 8 continuously and they rotate out, or is it 8 and they do shifts?
They do shifts.
So then
Like
that
2
means
at the
maybe
same
we
time.
have 3 at any time
And
in the county to do crash reports and speeding tickets.
But that's the problem, they're working crashes, they're not out working
we're
traffic.
going,
There's some
yeah, because
crashes.
I'm just letting you know what
I've
I just
ridden with
found out.
them.
Yeah.
We went from crash to crash, and when we went to try to do some speed enforcement, we went to another crash. I'll get those numbers for you guys on Tuesday from Lieutenant Rux and get the latest numbers and how the shifts work and kind of if they do zones, but hopefully with some new numbers. But again, the sheriff's office does know traffic. In fact, school crossing guards train their traffic folks to do traffic at school zones, by the way.
And that was another concern at one point, and I will come back to you on that.
So
Write it down.
next, the good news here, and I want to end on a little bit positive note, especially with Gwen in the audience here, but DOT has done tremendous work on 19. And part of it is that engagement that Mike Zen and Peter coming to you guys a few weeks ago. They've done missing crosswalks. They've done improvements on sidewalk gaps. They've done several different use signals and sidewalk gaps, like I said, but they've done lots of work on US 19, lots of money spent on enhanced lighting as well. And you can see that we've gotten a chance to see it on those areas that were really bad. In fact, they have brighter than normal in some locations where the crashers were kind of higher as well. So much that it seems darker where you went outside those areas. So they've done lots of work, and what they're going to do, and that the board approved, is on these 7 new mid-block locations. They've had these in Hillsborough County. They started on Fowler, very similar to 19. I worked for Hillsborough County. Fowler was very similar to 19. They started on Fowler, they've done Bush, they've done Hillsborough. These mid-blocks, they have over 30 of them in Hillsborough County. They work. They're not a perfect solution. We all know that. But they work. And from what we just looked at, they will help with that problem. So there's 7 locations. They have not been totally prioritized. They're based on some different things. They're based on those pedestrian crashes. They're also based on the proximity of those pedestrian generators as well. They're based on the nearest signal, because we all know they're not going to walk too far to a mid-block. So they're based on where they can access that cross, and then also where those counts are already there. They're also based on where you can design this facility to be put in at as well. So those are the 7 locations. We don't know exactly when they're going to happen. It's based on funding and based on prioritization, and we're hoping based on input from our committees that might help with that. And then next.
Question.
Oh.
Question.
Yep.
You're not taking out any of our palm trees, are you? I mean,
don't
you're
know,
going to go around the palm trees when you're in the median?
So you're going to see a really neat video of one of these. You shouldn't have to, Commissioner, based on looking at
Yeah, you
this
can walk
that's on
around the
here.
palm tree, just don't take out the palm trees, that's all.
So this is a simulation, really neat simulation of how these would work. This is a 4-lane, so 19 is definitely a little different than this.
Well, I noticed many in Dade City area. Must have been on 52. Yeah, the flashing one.
You can't tell that this is synchronized with another light down the road
So they will be.
in this picture. I know, but just in this film, so you're not stopping traffic, you're just, I mean, you're stopping it. It's not stopping the flow, because they're, right? They're synchronized with the lights at the intersections.
Right, they sync with all the flow. And again, that's where it slows down the traffic too, which is a very important part, is slowing down the traffic through the whole corridor.
Right.
Well, I was gonna comment, I think one of the remedies may be, I know that, we have, like Operation Stone Garden, which is a grant that we have, where we work in concert with Newport Richey, all the cities, the county, and Highway Patrol, and it's a drug grant where they come in, and they really should have a grant to have officers work just a traffic detail between Highway Patrol, the city, and the county, and come in and just have certain times, particularly when you have your peak times between 8 and midnight, to work those traffic details. And I was gonna ask if there's any grant money, because I think that would be the remedy.
So I didn't ask you to say that now, by the way.
Okay.
So FDOT Safety offers high visibility enforcement grants
Okay.
to only local jurisdictions. It
So does that go to
cannot
the
the
FHP
state.
then?
It cannot go to FHP because they're a state organization. It's supposed to go to your sheriff's office. Hillsborough County uses them. City of Tampa uses them. So there is, I think you used it last year.
We've used those in the past, that's
Yeah.
why I don't know why.
There's
we don't
another
have
one
it.
coming, so they're high visibility. And what happens is that money is used for high visibility enforcement and is overtime. So you can, that jurisdiction, that agency can use it.
So who has to apply? Do we apply? Does our
The
sheriff's
sheriff's
department
office
apply?
has to-
And are you working with them to apply?
We tried, and I can get you this information. Last year, I tried 3 times to get our sheriff's office to take that high visibility grant.
Because we normally do the pass-through portion through the city, and we always pass them, but we really like them, and the city loves it, because our officers get a little bit of overtime, and
Yep.
they enjoy these details, so, because they like working with the county officers and Newport Richey officers, they all know, they all work together, so, we've been waiting for that pass-through grant, because we wanted to see if we could try and get a detail on our portion of 19 and where Newport Richey is on Main Street, so we've been kind of waiting for that grant to pass through us.
So I'll make sure that I get that information to you. I know it's coming forth, pretty soon here. But yeah, every jurisdiction, and the FDOT wants those jurisdictions, those agencies to take that money for this reason, okay? It's a high visibility, it's for overtime. They pick the areas that they want to use it in.
And the lights are synchronized on 19, but when the crosswalk button is pushed, does it change the signalization?
I'm not an engineer or a traffic engineer, but I know with past experience on like 54 and even the Starkey Gap signalization, they're all kind of synced together to make sure the flow of traffic. And again, I'm not.
Well, I'm speaking specifically when they push the crosswalk button, because I was told that it does throw it out of whack a little bit for a couple cycles. But what I noticed when I was in Tampa and other cities is they don't have any push buttons. Their crosswalk
Automatic?
Yes, their crosswalk
There's-
signals
there's-
are automatic, and they're automatically synchronized with their lights.
So there's been some studies on the automatic, one just recently on the Pinellas, and it's not good, because what happens, the thing trips so much, and then everybody just so there's pluses and minuses to that, and we'll get a little bit more
Wait,
into the discussion.
What do you mean automatic? Because I'm saying it just automatically synchronizes with the light, so when the light's going red, then
Okay.
the
Those-
signal.
These should do that on 19. They should all be timed and phased through the whole corridor. And that's where you were talking about, that really helps with the speeding situation when they're all timed and phased, even with those mid-blocks. And again, I'm not a traffic engineer,
Because
but
in
they're
peak
all.
hours, they have to slow down. The
Right.
problem is when it's not peak hours, there's nothing to slow the traffic down, and they just
Yeah.
go, so.
Commissioner Starkey.
Well, first, one of the fatalities in my district, actually, it's not on here because it's 2022. The lady pushed her boyfriend into the truck at 70 miles an hour at 4 o'clock in the morning. So that was one of our fatalities. On purpose, yeah. The Wawa had it filmed. So I was just in Park City with my bike, which is biking capital, kind of the world, or of the U.S. And if you don't press the pedestrian crosswalk button, you don't get the number countdown. So it was interesting. I learned that lesson when I didn't press it, and I just waited for the light. Then there was no signal for me to go. So I had to go through a whole nother cycle. But I have been in many places where crosswalks and bike lanes are painted a different color. And do we think about painting those crosswalks, green or red or something that make them even more noticeable than this?
We can have that discussion, and Sam and I have talked about that for some of our county and trail locations, those crossings to be a different color, just more visible. And then lastly here, I think part of this is, and FDOT's really been pushing this, and we talked about this last night, is this safe system approach. It's a whole holistic approach to saving people's lives, improving the quality of life. So it's not just about engineering. And when we put these crosswalks in, we're going to do something very similar to what Hillsborough did and USF did with those crosswalks. There's going to be a lot of engagement, enforcement, and education that goes along with that engineering component. Because without it, it's just another signal going in on 19. So we have to teach people how to use them, kind of engage them to use it, and kind of enforce everybody to use it properly too. And that's where I think the high visibility enforcement comes in hand as well. But it's a holistic approach. We talked about there's other socioeconomic issues that go along with what's going on 19 that need to be addressed with partnerships with Metropolitan Ministries, the health department, and some other folks as well.
Any?
The only other thing I was gonna touch on is, obviously the technology and what we're doing goes a long way, but like our law enforcement, I know that, for example, Newport Richey and our city have had pretty much every weekend, we've had people on the corner of Ridge and 19 with signs and that sort of thing. And our law enforcement has been active and out there to make sure they're not walking out into the road. Same with when we have the transient population. Our officers are very proactive in trying to keep them on the sidewalks and not into the road, particularly where the crosswalks are. But that's about the best we can do is have our own staff, law enforcement, try and work those areas. But if there is additional grant money for either traffic or even those other enforcement, we would be interested in trying to pursue some of that.
I'll get that information to all of you guys, that high visibility grant money that FDOT offers.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I know that FDOT had come to us before as a city and had a mid-block crossing, and I kind of met with some upset with some of the citizens about, increasing traffic through their neighborhood, which was an issue. And I know, I'm just directed toward Secretary Gwynn because I know he's here. His representative that got sent got really treated badly by some of the members, especially the mayor. And it shouldn't have been. It could have been resolved in a favorable way, and it wasn't. So we're hoping really can work with them in the future to get some of those locations along Newport Richey too, because it's needed. And this is about safety, and we all have to work together. So my apologies for that, but that'll never happen again. But I'd like to move forward in the future.
Where was that going to be?
It was just
Green Key.
north of Green Key, yeah.
Oh, well, gosh, yeah, that's a needed area, right?
Anything else on this? And then and you say, what is the time frame on
So
these?
they're in the process of prioritizing them. The Green Key one, we were hoping to get one of those done because it was actually set and ready to go. So we're hoping to get one of those maybe in Elizabeth, which is the northern of 52, which we should know is really, really bad. But we're looking at that first one in the very near future. Once I get that, I'll make sure you guys hear what those are.
Okay. Well, thank you, Tina,
Thank
and
you.
thank you for the work on it, everyone. All right, scoring methodology.
Thank you. Before I go into that, I do want to say thank you to both Tina and Johnny for the level of effort put into the
Good job.
research on that
Yes.
presentation. A lot has gone into that. Florida DOT has looked very carefully at this corridor, is investing a lot of money. Our thanks to them as well. The next item before you is our Transportation Alternatives Program. This is a specialized fund that has specialized purposes. So we've developed a scoring methodology that is just here for you to have as information. We're not seeking action on it today. The intent is, because of the unique nature of those funds, our traditional scoring methodology that we use for our list of project priorities does not transfer to this fund. I anticipate the question, so I'll answer it without being prompted, but there are sub-allocated funds under the transportation alternatives. And in the brochure, or the materials that are in your packet, I'll point out that there's approximately $19 million statewide for the 15 largest MPOs. So we're not talking a large pot of money. But this is for your information. It will be a future action item. Are there any questions?
Does anyone have any questions on this item?
No, sir.
No? Okay, let's proceed
Thank you.
to the updates.
All right, and for our updates, we have a couple of quick things. I mentioned earlier the Citizens Advisory Committee vacancies, which will be reaching out to you. On November 1, we'll begin our call for projects, and that is to submit projects for scoring to go on to the list of project priorities that will go through January 31st. We'll be reaching out to each of you or your representatives during that time frame, as well as the other municipalities and some of the county departments, such as engineering. So wanted to make you aware of that coming up. It will be advertised with an email blast that will go out to everyone. So we have a 3-month period in which projects can be submitted, and we'll be using that methodology that you adopted earlier this year. A reminder, I think Tina brought this up, but on Tuesday is the Vision Zero workshop by Florida DOT. Looking forward to having everyone there. And again, thank you to Florida DOT for putting that event on. Now, the main item and why this was put into your packet is I'm very pleased to share with you, when we first started this journey, the MPO had gone through an audit from Florida Department of Transportation, Office of Inspector General. We developed an action plan to resolve the findings in that audit. And through a lot of hard work, and primarily I want to recognize Lori and Tania, who's not here today because she's in training for TSMO so that we can improve our system here in Pasco County. Through their efforts, we have resolved the audit. And included in your packet is an email from the Office of Inspector General saying we are all good to go. There was associated with that a finding by US DOT as part of our every 4-year certification, and that has also then been resolved once we got the go-ahead from OIG. It was a huge lift. The team did a great job. I'm really proud of the work they did, and I wanted to call it out with a specific agenda item so that you were fully aware. And again, my thanks to Lori over here, who cleaned up a lot of books and made everything proper. So I'm very grateful. I wanted to recognize 2 staff members to you.
Well, we appreciate the effort. I know you just look at the letter and it's like, oh, it's a letter. No, that letter represents a tremendous amount of work that was done by you and staff. So again, thank you so much for that. And I understand how going back through things is very tedious, very time consuming. And the good news is you got the blessing of the person you needed. So that's great. So thanks again for that work.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
can I go back to the TA
Yes,
ranking?
please.
So I know in the past, we've kind of blended the MPO with the county, and it's not supposed to be as blended, and you've done a great job getting us right. But who's supposed to submit these TA? Who does that? I mean, do we do that? Do we ask staff members to do that? I mean, what's the process? So it's confusing to me.
So, actually, it's the same call for projects as all of our call for projects, and I've been working with the county, and everybody else, and Clay and Sam specifically.
Okay.
They've been going through the list of new sidewalks, particularly projects, and ranking them, updating the rankings, because there's quite a few old ones that have been there. Debbie Bolnett left, so we've gone through that list. There's 41 plus. Of course, they're being added daily as well. So we're going through that process, and we're actually going to meet today. So they're going to be the one that submit that. We're going to just have a really good conversation about those projects based on ranking and a lot of different other things. Right away, I'm going to clean up, like I said last night on the BPAC, I'm going to clean up the list of unfunded projects we have now under TA. We've been very fortunate that we've had several of those funded, Leonard Road, Ranch Road, several of those being done.
What?
Yeah, see? Great point. So So there are several that are finally being done, but we have a few that are really important, some in Dade City, that really need to be done, that are safety as well. But we're working on those list of projects. Again, there's only a small pot of TA money, and a lot of people think Safe Routes to School is a big pot. It's not. So we're looking at the best way to fund those and leverage funding with the county, with DOT on getting some of those projects done.
Okay, here's a tough question. And do you remember when I first came on the MPO and working with trails, we had a staff member who was at a state meeting for the area, and they sent me the list of sprinkle money that DOT was handing out because they had leftover money at the end of the year. And we didn't have anything on the list because we didn't have anything shovel-ready.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah, so, well,
You know that.
but we're on, it's October, whatever, so their fiscal year is ended. So was there anything left over from last year, and did we get any of it?
I think kind of Ranch Road ended up being that one that was a leftover project because it was not on the list near the close of the end. And then it's still going to sprinkle down as well, as also. So, and a lot of projects that might be in the next hopper might move up. So and then part of the process is us knowing all those projects that are out there and if they're shovel ready and what's needed to be
So this
done.
is kind of a DOT question, maybe.
Yep.
Did they have any money, and I'm really being specific here, did they have any money left over, and did Pasco County apply for any of it?
Some late breaking news just a few seconds ago, but the money has arrived a bit later and they're still working on that list.
But do we and we have projects that are eligible to? You do. You have projects that are eligible. Okay. I once had them give us the numbers of where the money had gone for the last 10 years. And it was crazy that, because since we didn't apply or didn't have anything ready, we weren't getting any of it. And so it's just a little bone for me. So I just want to be sure that we're in the opportunity basket. Okay, thank you.
Good. And Carl, you have anything more?
Well, we have with us today Secretary David Gwynn with District 7
Oh,
Florida DOT.
where is Secretary Gwynn?
And I'd like to welcome him
Didn't even see you
up
there.
here.
He was hiding from me.
I'll hold my tongue.
He was trying to hide from me.
Oh, thanks.
Actually, I was right between you and the speaker the whole time, so I guess he couldn't see me through whoever was speaking. But first, I just appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I hadn't been able to get to the last few meetings, and really had two things I wanted to do today. One was just give you a little bit of an update. There's obviously a lot of work going on in the county right now, FDOT projects. I was glad to see the work we're doing on 19, and of course, Councilman will be glad to work with the city. We'll just have to figure out how to make sure we all talk a little earlier and make sure we're all on the same page.
Thank you.
But we also have some good news on a lot of our projects. As you maybe have heard, some of them are really getting close to finishing up. Overpass Road, the interchange, we hope be open by the end of the month. The diverging diamond at 56 and I-75, should all lanes, we still have a couple of ramp lanes still to open. All that will be open before Black Friday, so hopefully as people get out and shop, they'll be able to use all the lanes and we'll get everybody through there. On some of our other projects that were in the defaulted projects, if you would, they've made a lot of progress. 54, they've gotten most of the underground work done. So you should start to see the road work really accelerating now because a lot of the drainage work and all had to get done first, and they've gotten a lot of progress there. And also out on 52, some of the concrete pavement they're doing out by 41 and out that area. The State Road 52, the new alignment going out to Clinton. So originally we hoped that would be done by the end of this year. It may be a month or two later, and the only reason is that Superior Construction, who is the primary contractor on that, they were about almost a year ahead of schedule. But they actually are down right now in Sanibel Island rebuilding that causeway, and they pulled some of their resources off of there and other projects around the state to really help to do that. And if you've had any chance to see the progress they've made down there, it's been pretty amazing.
Yeah.
To get the causeways back open. You know, we were so fortunate it didn't happen here in ours, but obviously I was able to get down there, and some of our staff were down there right after the hurricane to see the damage. It was devastating, so, thankful it didn't come here, but obviously sympathetic for the folks that it did hit. And so, just have a lot of really good things going on. We're also getting ready to select a design-build team for the Dade City bypass, and we'll also be awarding the other segments of US 98, going all the way from Polk County line to the Hernando County line up to State Road 50. Will be coming out soon. We're working closely with county staff on the Moffett development there and the earmark and getting all that. So just lots of great things. We're glad to be partnering with you. But the other thing I want to do today, I get lucky. I've got 5 counties that I have to work with. And I say only 5. I got only 5 counties. So I get to spend a little more time with you and the other counties and working together and building relationships and be able to you can call me on my phone anytime I want and all. And you may know that District 7 is one of 7 geographic districts within Florida DOT. We're a decentralized agency. But we also have a 8th district, which is the Turnpike Enterprise. And so the Turnpike Enterprise has 20-some counties that they have roads through all over the state. And so my counterpart, Nicola LaCour, who's here with me today, she doesn't really have the ability, as I do, to stay within a geographic area of 5 counties. So she isn't able to get out as much as she would like to get with you. But she is doing more of that now, and she's here today to kind of talk to you a little bit about stuff in Pasco County, but also after this meeting, if you would like to have any discussions with her afterward. I can tell you Nicola's a great partner. The Turnpike and the DOT districts work very closely together. Whenever you guys call me and you have something about the Turnpike, I call her right away, but you can also call her too. So I wanted to give her a chance to come up here today, just talk to you as well. So Nicola?
Thank you so much. Good morning, Chairman and members of the board. Just wanted to again just introduce myself, Nicola LaCour. I have been with the department working mostly with the Turnpike for 20 years. I did 3 years in commuter rail, so most of my time has been with the Turnpike. I've had the pleasure of working on projects throughout the state. And one of the things that when people think about the Turnpike system, they really think about the Turnpike Road, the I-75 down to South Florida, down to Miami. But really, we're a system of roads. And as you know, Veterans Expressway, Suncoast Parkway, through this area, those are very important projects to us. We had the opportunity to work very closely with you all on the Ridge Road interchange on Suncoast. Improving that access was extremely important. Very proud to be part of that project, and we continue to work on extending 589 up to US 19 to get that project completed. We just finished letting the next section of 589 just last month, and the bids came in a little under our estimate, which was a nice surprise. Might be because we adjusted our estimates and got them down just a little bit, but that was good news. That project continues to push north, and we're going to see it through. Another thing that I wanted to mention, part of the Turnpike Enterprise is we have a couple of different brands that fall under our umbrella. SunPass is our prepaid toll program, and last month you may recall that Governor DeSantis introduced a SunPass savings program beginning September 1st. For our frequent users, for those that rely on toll facilities to commute to and from work. And so with that, with 40 transactions, you get a 20% rebate, and 80 transactions, you get a 25% rebate. I'm really proud to say we processed September's rebate for our customers, that discount. And so about 360,000 customers throughout the state that use a toll facility to commute received a return of about $4 million. So pretty significant when you think about the costs that people have commuting to and from work. So really proud to be able to deliver that program. We look for a lot of ways to expand the usefulness of the SunPass prepaid toll program, including being able to use it at airports for ease of parking, and even at some ports, Port Canaveral, you can use it for parking. Another thing that I wanted to mention under our brands is the SunTrax test facility. I don't know if you all are familiar with it, but it's in Auburndale, Florida. And the facility has just completed construction. And so just thinking about some of the items that have been on your agenda this morning, that the SunTrax test facility we'll be able to use in order to improve transportation, safety, connected vehicles, doing some testing with different applications there, but also electric vehicle charging. We just completed a project along our main line at our 8 service plazas, increasing the use of charging stations, increasing the number of charging stations. We had maybe a handful a couple of years ago, and now we have nearly 100 spread throughout the main line to help with some of that range anxiety for people that might be traveling through the system. But one of the things that we noticed, and you all certainly brought it up today as it relates to electric vehicle charging, is the adoption rate is accelerating, but it's still very slow. But we have to have better solutions for how we charge vehicles, whether they're passenger vehicles or commercial vehicles. And so at SunTrax, one of the things that we're going to be looking at is dynamic wireless power transfer. And so basically in-motion charging for vehicles. Certainly that's going to be important for the commercial vehicles that use our system, but also for transit vehicles. And so being able to test that at a facility in our own backyard is extraordinarily important. So just wanted to share a couple of things beyond just tolling that we do under the Turnpike enterprise. And as Secretary Gwynn mentioned, we work very, very closely together. And when there is an issue that touches the Turnpike or something that I'm responsible for, he is quick to let me know so I can help to resolve it. But certainly I serve at your pleasure, and you can certainly reach out to me at any time.
Thank you. Commissioner Starkey?
Thank you, and welcome to Pasco County.
Thank you.
And I am a great fan of the Suncoast. As a matter of fact, Starkey Dirt is actually on the Veterans, on one of the overpasses, and we say it's the best one, but I just don't remember which one it is. But I served for 3 governors on the State Greenways and Trails Council, Governor Bush, Governor Christ, Governor Scott. And this board knows I'm a big trail advocate, and we actually have quite a number of trail users sitting here. And a number of years ago, I tried, and Secretary Gwynn really tried to help me to have the ability to provide a safe way for pedestrians and cyclists, mainly cyclists, to get from the east side of the Suncoast over to the Suncoast Trail, which is wildly successful. And we were unsuccessful. I think the main reason was because the height of the crossing underneath was less than 8 feet. It was 7'6" or 7'8". And I just came back from cycling all over some in Colorado and some in Utah, and there are many places where I went where it was less than 8 foot. So I don't know if that's something that we can look at in the state of Florida, that it doesn't have to be 8 foot, but I'm hoping that as you construct the northern part of the Suncoast, that you really put in pedestrian and cycling underpasses that are not at the intersections, because they're very dangerous at the intersections. You got traffic, trucks going north-south and turn lanes, and it's just a better experience for Florida users if you have these underpasses not at the intersections. So
Well,
something to
certainly
think about.
Safety is something that is extraordinarily important to us, and we'll certainly take a look at that.
Yeah, I know when I first came on the MPO, the 52 and 75 intersection was being redesigned, and we were able to stop that design, and which is kind of hard with FDOT, but they did redo their design, and they had taken out the underpass where the train had been going through on, is it Ossie Murphy? What is that, Ossie Murphy up there?
I think it is.
Yeah, and they redid their design. I know it cost over $1 million to put that underpass back in, and we're building a major trail in this county that will utilize that so that people don't have to cross with all the traffic at the 5275 interchange. So, so just something that we care about a lot.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that.
Thank you. Commissioner Oakley?
Thank you for coming. I was just wondering one question. I go to Georgia a lot in the wintertime for go hunting, but I travel 75. And I was wondering if there's some chance in the future that we could probably get maybe the Suncoast to go
Yeah.
on up into Georgia too, to give us another route, because when, in the fall of the year, when it's hunting season, all on 75, from around Wildwood,
Yep.
all the way through Gainesville, is really backed up traffic all through that area. I mean, there's a lot of traffic there. And other times of year, it's not so bad, but during that fall of the year, it's extremely, a lot of traffic. We just need another outlet to leave the state sometime. We got 95, of course, that serves over there, but here in the center part of the state, we got a lot more cars moving on those highways, so.
It's an excellent point and something that we'll continue to look at. That's why it's so important for us to finish Suncoast 2 as it currently stands to get it to US 19. And then we, obviously, we're focused on what comes next. I travel up I-75 to go to Alabama, so I know certainly what you're referring to.
Yep.
And then also for the hurricanes to have an extra evacuation route to up north, so.
Certainly. We look at Toll 589, so that entire corridor really as our western main line, moving north-south out of the state in terms of an evacuation route. So it is extraordinarily important to us.
And thank you for being here today. And also, I know when we went to Tempe, Arizona, they had solar panels on basically on top of every roof or every parking garage. And even if we could use some of the solar panels for the charging stations, that would be better.
That's an excellent point, and actually, I had a meeting earlier this week to talk about exactly that, how we might be able to use solar at the charging stations, or even having a solar field out at SunTrack. So we're actually evaluating that. It's a great point.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bly?
Thank you. Thanks for being here, Madam Secretary. Any opportunities, I'm sure there would be, for visiting the SunTrax facility and seeing some of the technology, some of the things that you all are exploring? I could see that as a very neat visit for those of us that are interested in transportation, as well as organizations like the Ridge League of Cities, which is mostly the Polk and eastern Pasco and Hardy, DeSoto counties. I think that would be an interesting program for them, maybe even a visit there at some point. Is that something that would be in the offering?
We host a number of events out there. The facility has just finished construction of the infield, so some of the test sectors that we have that actually will be great for testing some of the pedestrian safety applications that we looked at a little earlier. So we'd be happy to host a tour, and probably next year would be the best time to do that as the facility continues to get the inner finishings completed.
Sounds fascinating, the things that
Yeah.
you're exploring and just the different technology. I think we'd all find that very interesting.
Mayor Tremblay.
Going off Commissioner Oakley, we have 19 on the coast, but there's very limited until the center in terms of going north-south. But I think a lot of our traffic issues are running east-west too. And I didn't know if there's any plans, whether it's along the 52 corridor or 54 corridor, to maybe have an overpass or a toll road running in one of those directions, because this county is just booming in population. And, I would think that if we were going to do that, the infrastructure would be better built now than down the road along one of those other corridor paths. And I know that Ridge alleviates a lot of the pressure, that Ridge Road extension, but the veterans running north-south into Tampa is very effective, and I think something running east-west would be very effective in this particular jurisdiction. And I didn't know if there's any.
I can answer some of that. But when 52 gets completed, you see all that traffic backed up at the interchange there at Suncoast and 41.
Yes.
When that section in there gets completed, they'll be able to move, but then they're gonna go in across 41, that intersection all be improved, and you'll move. We'll still have a place to back traffic up, but it won't be at a red light. It'll actually be able to flow a little better once we go through that intersection. So we'll help the east-west area for 52, 54, 56. Actually, 56, 54 that goes across county was when 56 got to 301. It was the first time we had a road that went all the way from one side of our county to the other. That was completed to the size it is. So.
But to have an overpass in terms of, so you're not, because you have a lot of the crossroads, and that's what creates the traffic, because it just backs up. And really, the only way, like Pinellas County and Hillsborough, is to go over. there's really no other way to move traffic without the stop and goes, which is what creates the long time travel across the county. So, I didn't know if that's ever been in the works, and
Well, is it my turn? Sure. I have one more question for her, then I'll ask that question to Secretary Gwynn, actually. Do you know if the Ridge Road and Suncoast intersection is open? Because I know we were paying for all the tolls there, and I didn't know if we still were. I don't know if you guys knew that, but we took on the responsibility so we could go ahead and get it open.
You can go
So-
both ways.
The facility is open and charging customers that use the facility.
Okay, it's not coming out of our pocket, eh?
Correct.
Wonderful.
And hasn't been for several months.
Okay, I
Yes.
never thought to ask, and I know they had the little black
on it
things
this
across. Yeah, but I didn't notice if those lines were gone or not. But my question, I guess, kind of following what Mayor Tremblay was saying, was a couple meetings ago, or the last meeting that we ended up canceling because we didn't have a quorum, was going to be a 5441
Yes.
update, and I see it's not on our agenda today, and I don't know if that would be a turnpike, yeah. But Mayor Tremblay, I don't know how long you've been here, but when I first got elected, we had an unsolicited bid by a Spanish transportation company to double-deck 54, and, you know, we had some
So-
meetings on that, but I do think we have our first overpass coming, and I think.
At 54 and 41.
Next month, you'll get an update
I
on
won't be
that.
here. I'm going to the Bucks game, so I'll miss it, in Germany. I'll watch from Deutschland.
Make sure you get
Yeah,
a personal briefing on it.
yeah. So I think that could be our first, depending on what model they think is best. But, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if one day we have that going on.
because I talked to Mr. Biles before he left, and that was one of the discussions we had, is about, at this point, having to build up in certain areas as opposed to try and go wider.
Well, you cannot, I don't think 56 can be widened anymore, right? 6 lanes, that's it, it's done.
It's going up is the only way, is what I
Right.
guess.
Right.
54?
We typically no longer build arterial roads, you know, greater than 6 lanes.
Yeah,
Or else you end up with
no, you couldn't, already, I think,
parts
when,
of 19 and parts of
Yeah.
Fowler and others that are like very difficult for pedestrians and anybody to get across.
when I saw the timing and the analysis of a pedestrian crossing 54 and 41 with the new designs, it was like 20 minutes to get from one corner to the other with like 9 lights or something.
That was one of the alternatives.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that's gonna be the one.
That was crazy.
I think it's much of a-
Not that I've ever seen a pedestrian try and cross that intersection, I never have, but,
Well, we want to thank you both for being
Yeah.
here today and coming and visiting us, and certainly, we appreciate your being receptive to our needs here, so
Yeah.
thanks again for
and
coming.
we love our Suncoast, right?
We appreciate your support. Thank
you.
County.
All right. Is that all you have, Carl? Got any any items of note or meeting scheduled? No? Anything from the members at this time? Nope. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Very good. All right.
Well, I think that's-